I'm Cassidy,
And I'm Kennedy.
and this is Threads of Wealth.
The thing I love about H2 Tab is that it's so easy to travel with. It's so easy to take. Even if you're just going to work, you're going to a workout. If you're just on the go, it doesn't necessarily have to be on an airplane. But whether it's in a car, airplane, just going to work, it is so easy to take with you. The little hydrogen tablets are so small, they'll fit right in your purse. And then the same with the isotonics, which I take every single morning. They come in individual packets. And so it's so easy to just throw in your bag.
Yeah, I have to give a shout out to the new flavor, the lemon lime, because I just released and I tried it and it is so good. I like that it has like a lot. I feel like it has a lot of flavor to it. So everyone needs to try the lemon lime flavor and the raspberry and the unflavored. It's all good, but you can use our code Threads of Wealth for 10% off.
We know politics can be one of those conversations that people tend to avoid. It can be divisive, exhausting, and overwhelming. But today, after Election Day, we figured it would be a good time to have a conversation about why it's important, not from a partisan perspective, but from a wellness and community perspective. Because at the end of the day, whether you realize it or not, the things that affect our daily lives are directly shaped by the people that we elect. So today we're going to be talking about staying informed, having respectful conversations, being engaged with what's going on around you while not being consumed. Our goal for today's discussion is to encourage you to participate in your community in a healthy way. So it's no question that people stray away from political conversations in today's world, especially. But why do you think that is? Like, what's the backbone of why it's so divisive right now?
My perspective is I think that politics is just so different than it used to be for many different reasons. And so it's much easier for people to just disengage and not want to be a part of it. Mm-hmm. Which I can't fully blame, but we're just missing a huge opportunity because there's everything that we are surrounded by is affected by who our leaders are. And so I think it comes down to, I think social media has changed it a lot. But politics has become so much more of a angry, divisive arena than it used to be, where it was, mm-hmm. I think, I can't even pinpoint when the change happened. It's a slow change, but like, instead of I disagree with you and I want to listen to you and I still have respect for you, it's become more personal. And like, mm-hmm. if you disagree with me, you're a bad person and I can't stand you. And I feel like that's the feeling that's out there.
Yeah, I think people are just like tying their beliefs to their identity, which should be true in a sense. Like, my beliefs is who I am, but that doesn't mean that just because somebody doesn't believe the exact same way as you means that you're invalidated as a person or as a human. And I feel like that's how people view it, as like anything that they believe is like the hill they're going to die on, and they're not open to any other perspectives. They're not open to any other opinions. And I think that's when we get into trouble, because the beauty of a democracy is that we can all come together under the same roof with differing opinions, and we can learn from each other and we can become better as a whole. I personally don't want a world that everybody views or has the exact same views as me, just because I think we can become shallowed out. We can become just like put in this box a little bit that you have different ideas than I do. This person over here has different ideas than I do. And so anytime that we only think it's my way or the highway, I think we get into a lot of trouble. And you mentioned social media. I think that's a huge part of it, because whether it's like algorithms, the things that we're seeing, we're just so easily offended. And I know that that's probably a controversial thought in and of itself, but we're just so easily offended that we can't even fathom, like, hearing something that we don't believe in and not taking offense to it. We're immediately like, nope, that's wrong. How dare you? And there are personally some like crazy perspectives out there, in my opinion. But I think that's the result of people just like spiraling or snowballing off of not agreeing with somebody. And that's a really, really dangerous position to be in.
Yes. And it's very like, I'll also think, it's easier said than done sometimes. But why would we want to be it's very healthy to have different perspectives, like you mentioned. And why would we want to be people that are just closed off in our own box?
Yeah.
And how do you learn and grow if you never are willing to be open to other people's perspectives? Even if someone's idea in a whole, you might not want to, you might not agree with it. There might be little parts of it that you're like, okay, I can see that. Or are you willing to see from, why they might be passionate about it from their side? And you might be wondering, like, why are we talking about this with a health and wellness podcast? But there's so much that goes into it. And we'll get more into it later on, in the health and wellness world, so much of it comes from our leaders that are in place. But also when you're in anger, if, we have such an angry community, like in country, and we're always outraged by other people's views, that's a very unhealthy place to be in. Causes stress. And so I think that's really where, part of where we're coming from it today is like, this is, be engaged and care about what's going on around you, but also you don't have to take every argument to heart too and let it affect you.
Yeah. And I think that's the other downside to social media, is that a lot of these conversations or differing opinions are taking place over the internet. They're taking place on social media and comments, and it's giving power to social media because somebody can sit behind a screen and type out all they want with no consequences. And I think that's hard because, one, that's where things get that's where things get out of hand, is when there's no consequences to your decisions. And two, it is minimizing the importance of face-to-face conversations. And I think that's where we learn, is face-to-face conversations. It's, if you had a completely different opinion on something than I did, and we're sitting here having a face-to-face conversation, when I say I'm learning from it, doesn't necessarily mean that I'm learning from you and changing my mind. It means that I'm learning why I believe in what I believe. So a lot of times, like, we will grow up a certain way and we tend to just like pick up on what our parents told us and like how it's always been. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. However, it's so important to educate yourself and to know why you believe what you believe in. And so learning from each other doesn't necessarily come from hearing a different opinion and then adopting that mindset. It's hearing a different opinion, questioning internally, wait, why do I believe this? This is why. And then trying to have that conversation that way in a respectful manner. So I think the more you can educate yourself, whether you're talking to someone that doesn't believe in the same things as you, or if we're sisters, we believe in the same things, that's just as beneficial. Just knowing what you believe in, why you believe in it, one, is just helps you become a more involved, well-rounded individual. But two, it helps you create change, which I think especially our generation is starting to fall away from. It's easier to be disengaged. It's easier to not care. And that's a scary place to be in.
Yeah. I think another thing that is that's misunderstood is that a lot of people think that politics don't affect them, or they can kind of disengage and like, it doesn't really matter, because that's not my world. Like I'm not in that, but literally everything that we do it touches politics, and politics really being government, I guess. But like our schools, our healthcare systems, our public lands, taxes, all of that. So I think everybody, you know, everyone's passionate about something different. Can guarantee you that what you're passionate about is being affected by the policies that are put in place.
Yeah.
And so I just I think a good place to start for people that are just like have been completely off put by politics and don't want to get involved is just find like what is the one thing that, not the one thing, but what's something that you're passionate about, and look at like how policies are affecting that thing.
Yeah.
But yes, there's like I said, schools. I think really obviously we want to talk more about the healthcare and health and wellness, especially now. Like that has been with RFK Jr. and the position he's in has brought that to light a lot more, and people realize that our government really can affect healthcare and in a positive way.
Yeah. Yeah, the Maha movement, there's no doubt that it is huge and it's gaining traction. I think like you could have thought about Maha even 5 years ago and we probably would have been like, well, that's great, but what's going to come of it? And I think it's really neat that we're starting to see actual change happen. For example, so the primary election was last night. And in Iowa, Zachary Lawn, he was one of the Republican gubernatorial candidates, and which is running for governor. He was endorsed by the RFK Jr.'s Maha Action organization. And that is the first candidate in history to be endorsed by that organization. That organization never really has engaged in a sense like that, but they endorsed this Zachary Lawn, and he won last night. And I think that's a huge win for Maha. I think that's a huge win for even just the people that are not necessarily fully bought into Maha, but people that are like, okay, something's wrong. What can I do to create change? Because no matter how small you feel compared to how big a problem is, change can happen. And so I think it's really cool because Zachary Lawn, he endorses, or he's fighting for a lot of the things that we talk about on this podcast. He is fighting to reduce vaccine mandates. He is fighting to bring Iowa farmland back into the hands of Iowans. And I think he said like on his website, 25% of Iowa farmland is owned by federal governments or entities, which is absolutely crazy. I was just going to look here. He is fighting for healthy water, just really a healthier Iowa. I think his slogan was "Make Iowa Healthy Again." So very much Maha. But he talks a lot about fighting the cancer crisis that is happening in Iowa. And so that feels like a big task. But I think when you have somebody that's really honed into the different factors that play into something like that, I think it's feasible. And so at the very least, it's not like if he's elected in November, it's not like he's going to go and cure cancer. But I think it's really important to have leaders in place that understand the importance of changing environmental factors, changing the way things have always been in order to help wellness and health in general.
Another thing that, as an example, because recently this is on the national level, the Farm Bill passed the House and now it's going to the Senate. But I bring that up because, conservation is also part of my world, but conservation is so much more than just, people that like to hunt.
Right.
Conservation, like if you like clean air, if you like open lands for your kids to run on, if you value that's conservation is touching that. And I think that has been talked about more in this Farm Bill. I think it's in the past, it's usually been like, oh, Farm Bill, it's just for people that are farmers or care about conservation because they're hunters. But it literally touches everybody. Like if you live in this country and you care about, just even something as simple as just like having fresh air to breathe in, then then that touches you. And so there's just so many issues that we talk about and it's not just national politics, like so many things that we're affected by happen at the county, the city level, that we need to pay more attention to.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier just like thinking about what you're passionate about, and like obviously we're passionate about a lot of different things, but if there's one thing specifically there that you personally feel like, I wish this was different, or why is this way? It doesn't necessarily have to be some groundbreaking idea. It can just be a question. In South Dakota, we are lucky enough to have a pretty small state where we have one member of Congress. We have one person in the House of Representatives. We obviously have 2 senators like every other state on a federal level. And then we're immersed with all of our local candidates, our local elected officials every day in our smaller communities. And so we have a neat opportunity to live life with these people and have an opportunity to have these face-to-face conversations. In a state like California or Texas or something like that, it might be a little bit more difficult, but that should never discourage you from reaching out to people in these positions. So you could think, well, I'm just a mom, I'm just a business owner, I'm just this. You can label yourself all you want. 1, you shouldn't. 2, you are their constituent, and that's what they're there for. They're there to listen. They're there to help educate. They're there for new ideas. They're there to represent you on a larger scale. And so if you have never really engaged in public policy or politics before, I think the best place to start would be going in, trying to approach one of your local leaders, whether it's city council person, whether it is your state representative, state senator. Reach out to them. Say, hey, can we have a conversation about that? I'd be hard pressed to find somebody that would say no to wanting to hear or wanting to talk to their constituent. Obviously, you might have that, but they're there to represent you. And so if you have questions, reach out. And you shouldn't be discouraged from doing that on a federal level too. So like I said, we know the people in those positions very well. Some people don't know them quite as well, but they are always there, just like from our personal experience, knowing how that works on the back end. Constituent services is extremely important to these local and federal, these elected positions. And so if you have questions, if you have ideas, do not be discouraged. Just reach out and fight for what you believe in.
Yeah. We talking a little bit more on like the wellness impact of being under kind of seems like constant political stress. How do you really manage that? Someone, wanting to be informed on what's going on, but not being too consumed by it.
I'm not great at it, to be honest, and I don't think anybody truly is, but I think the thing that has helped me most is just turning off the news. I used to be like every morning watching the news, trying to stay engaged, but it was doing more harm than good for me personally. And so I think at the end of the day, my faith is the only thing that has really made a difference in that, because it's kind of impossible to, without faith, in my personal opinion, to stay connected and to stay educated on everything that's going on and not lose hope. Sometimes it is extremely discouraging. Sometimes it's encouraging. There's good things that happen too. There's good people in positions. But in today's world, it seems like there is more negative than positive. And so I think to understand that, at the end of the day, God's in control. We are here for a reason. We're not here to sit back and watch. That's how I feel. I feel that we're here to help create change, whether that doesn't mean that I'm going to run for office, but we can create change in our communities. We can create change in our families. And so I think understanding that is really huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I think staying informed is, very healthy, and it's a responsible thing to do as a citizen. But living in a constant state of stress and alarm is not.
Yeah.
And so only you can be the one to assess that for yourself. But just knowing that what's helped me is knowing that social media is designed, like everyone knows what algorithm is. It's designed to keep pulling you back in. And so you have to set those boundaries for yourself. Maybe you're only consuming news for, these 2 15-minute slots a day. That's and I just, there's people, people are, if you go on X, for instance, people are posting news articles, politics stuff every 5 minutes, it seems like.
Yeah.
Like one account will post every 5 minutes. And so there is it's really hard in these days to not be consumed by it. So you have to set those boundaries for yourself. But yeah, if you're not careful with it, you are pulled into that, into a state of stress and watching out for those symptoms that you see.
Right. Yeah. There's a big difference between being engaged and being obsessed with it, making it your whole identity. Obviously, you need to wholeheartedly believe in the things that you are speaking out on and voting for. But letting it control your entire life is a different story. I think you kind of hit it on the head by saying that social media is not the first place that you should go for your information. Start local, start by attending local meetings, whether that's like a school board meeting, if that's open to the public, or, city council, or like I said, just talking to your local leaders. Start by having face-to-face conversations with people that, your neighbor, or it doesn't have to be one conversation creating change. Just start small. Every conversation, every face-to-face conversation especially will snowball into something that's greater than just sitting at home on your couch doing nothing, watching the news.
Yeah.
So
one recommendation I would have for people that are interested in something like this, I found out about this like 2 or 3 years ago. And it's a newsletter that you get every day, and it's your news summed up from the day before, but from a biblical standpoint. But it gives you all of the facts of the top news articles from the day before, but then at the end it gives you like a biblical perspective on some of them.
I've never heard of that. What is it called?
That's what I remember for the life of me right now, but we'll link it in the show notes.
Okay.
Because
is it an email or
it's an email?
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe they've evolved into more than that now, but I get the email every day. It's so good to days that I aren't able to follow along, which are a lot of days actually. Yeah. With what's going on, it's really nice to have it. It takes like 5 minutes to read it, and I feel like I have like the overall basis of what is going on without being too consumed by it. And then it gives you like, again, that biblical perspective at the end, which is pretty cool.
I love that specifically because as a mom now, I struggle with not necessarily struggle, but I'm constantly a little bit overwhelmed with the idea of raising her up in a way that she is able to become a good and respectful human. And I know that I'm the one that's Tanner and I are going to model that for her. But it's hard it feels overwhelming to think about raising her up to be a good citizen, to be someone who is able to respectfully disagree with their neighbor. And so I think tying in the biblical perspective is a really neat way to internalize that myself and then be able to model that for her instead of, because I really don't want to raise her in a way that says, I believe this, so you have to believe this. I really want to help educate her and allow her to form her own opinions. But from the foundation, I want to model that from the foundation of my faith while tying in, being a good citizen.
Yeah, that's a good segue into what we wanted to talk about too, which is like, what does that look like, being a good citizen?
Yeah.
And in turn, then you're, modeling that for your kids. But I think it's so much more than just voting. It's being informed, like we talked about. I think being able to have discussions with people that are encouraging and not divisive, but like, you know, that are healthy, because again, that's how we grow. That's how we become better, is by having those conversations, caring about local issues too, not just the national ones, but what's happening in your city. And we can't realistically, if you're in the season of motherhood, and even if you're not, and it's just life is crazy, you can't realistically take on all of that and care about every issue. But again, maybe it's finding one issue that has come up that's really important to you, that you think needs to see change or needs to improve. Then, you know, take that upon yourself to look into it more, and, you know, see how, like you talked about earlier, talking to local city councilors or state legislators on it.
Yeah. And I think, so my daughter's one, so it's not necessarily feasible. People are probably like, well, I can't teach my 1-year-old how to be a good citizen. Like she can say mama and dada, and that's like basically it. So like telling her like, this is why you vote, is not going to go over her head. But I think that doesn't mean that you can't start now. I think doing things to help her independence and help her confidence, so that when she's at an age where she's able to understand those types of things, is super important. You know, especially like when she gets to a point where, whether she's in elementary school or middle school, like having the independence or having the confidence to feel free to ask questions, I think is something that I really want to do. We also just, you know, had Memorial Day a couple weeks ago, and I think that's the other part about being a good citizen, is recognizing and knowing why we are able to live in a country like the United States of America, why we are able to have these freedoms, why we are able to respectfully disagree with our neighbors and not be controlled by the government. And so I think if we don't do our duty as citizens and as parents, then our children grow up not understanding those core values. And if we don't understand core values, if we don't learn from the past, then history tends to repeat itself. And so I think that's where it feels heavy to me, is like, I have to raise her in a way that she is thankful for the men and women that fight for our freedom. She is thankful for everything that our country has gone through to get to the point that we're able today. And she recognizes that if we do not do our civic duty, then it can be, our country can get to a place where that stuff isn't appreciated anymore. And so I made that sound really, really heavy, but I think if you have that in the back of your mind as a parent, as an aunt, as a grandparent, as an uncle, even as a friend, I think just having that in the back of your mind, recognizing that yourself and trying to live that out, will naturally model that for the younger generation.
Yeah, this kind of goes off the topic of politics necessarily, but really like looking at your community and seeing how you can be involved more in the community to make it a healthy place, because healthy communities they don't just happen by chance. Right. It takes a people volunteering at nonprofits, at stepping up to be church leaders or volunteers or coaches. There's just so many different capacities that it takes to be involved in a local level, but doesn't have to be like you're trying to do everything, but find something that, you know, you can do to contribute to being someone that's contributing to a healthy community.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I've always believed that we were raised in a way, you know, our parents always told us, and I think their parents always told them, that just don't complain about things, fix them. And so if there's something that's bugging you in your community, if there's something that's bugging you on a federal level, don't sit back and complain about it. And I'm guilty of that too. But stand up, go outside, have a conversation, and help create change, help fix it. And I think just getting involved, like you just talked about, is a good way of understanding what is going on in your community and what needs to be changed.
We also live in these times, feel like there's so many people that are lonely. And there is It's interesting because we're in a time that we're as connected as we've ever been because of social media, but then that's also led into isolation because you're connected by your phone, but we're realizing that doesn't mean anything compared to face-to-face interactions. And people, I think, feel lonely because they're not plugged into something that's bigger than just themselves. I think that if you find that, if you feel like maybe you moved into a new community, or maybe you've been in the same community you've been in for a while, but you just kind of feel isolated. I think you would find it really rewarding, and how much more plugged in you'd feel if you just found one thing whatever it may be that you found to be plugged into. There's a lot of loneliness out there, and it's one way to really serve something that's bigger than you.
Yeah, I agree. I think just focusing on something that's bigger than you, trying to create change, showing up for people, showing up for yourself, showing up for your community, for your children, staying informed. And then at the end of the day, really just remember that there's real people behind every issue. Whether you disagree with something or not, whether you agree or disagree, always just try to remember that there is a real human behind everything that goes on. And I think that humanizes it a little bit more, and will hopefully be able to create more understanding so that we're able to approach these issues in a more respectful way.
Yeah. And with your kids, like, take your kids to do stuff in the community, teach them at a young age, in that way, like actually physically doing that, going and serving at a nonprofit, but bringing them with, and then those conversations naturally happen. It can be kind of overwhelming to think, like, how am I gonna teach my kids this or have this conversation? And you don't necessarily have to, like, it doesn't have to be a sit down conversation. Just your actions speak louder than your words, and taking them out and watching you do it is the best way to teach them.
Yeah. I think a good way to kind of round out this conversation is that in South Dakota, we just passed the primary election, but we're still in an election year. So there will be a runoff for a few different things come July 28th, I believe it is. I could be wrong, but at the end of July, there will be a runoff. In November, there will be a general election. So knowing that if you didn't vote, you didn't miss your opportunity. Try to take the time in between now and then to really educate yourself on what's going on. What kind of future do you want for yourself? What kind of future do you want for your kids? And then start to become involved and vote.
Yeah, we would just challenge you that if you're someone that hasn't been involved ever in politics, to start small and just try to lean into it a little bit, learn more about, what you care about. And on the other side of that, if you're someone that cares a lot and you might be overconsumed sometimes, to just take a step back too, and realize that, yes, this is really important, but we don't need to take it all under our belt at once.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Thanks for joining us for today's conversation. We hope that this encouraged you to stay informed, stay engaged, and remember that small actions can make a big difference in the communities we call home. You don't always have to have all the answers, and you don't have to agree with everyone around you, but showing up, listening well, and caring about the people around you matters. As always, thank you for spending part of your day with us. We would be so grateful if you would give us a 5-star review on wherever you're listening to the podcast today. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Threads of Wealth. We'll see you on the next one.